Welcome to our virtual polar expedition with Quark Expeditions. And it is my pleasure to introduce you to Gordon Durker. He's the Senior Vice President and General Manager at Cruise Norway. Gordon, thanks for being here today.
Thank you, as always, Lee. It's great to be back online with you. And we're very excited today because what we have today is Mr. Jake, or who we have today is Jake Rogers of Quark Expeditions. Quark is arguably one of the Rolls-Royce operators, I would say, that we represent as an agency. As we can see from the slide, they've been around since 91. We are actually a little bit younger than them, starting in 99, but our company's worked with Quark intensely many years now, and very excited to walk you through some of these incredible voyages that they operate in the Arctic and Antarctica. And yeah, I'm gonna keep it short because really we're all here to learn more, and Jake is the perfect person to take us on this virtual trip. So Jake, without further ado, it's all yours, my friend.
Thanks, Gordon. Cheers, mate. I like the analogy of the Rolls Royce. I'm a more of a McLaren fan. I don't know if you saw the F1 in Australia this weekend, but we took out it. And Lee, thank you for that introduction. I'm going to get you to do all of my webinars moving forward. That was absolutely fantastic. I actually learned a lot about Zoom that I didn't even know you could do. So thank you for that. And as Lee said, if you do, excuse me, need captions, you can. I do have a very thick Australian accent. It's a little bit more thick than usual as I just returned. And jet lag is still suffering. But yeah, if you do have any problems with not understanding something I'm saying or I am talking a little bit quicker, please just bring it up in the Q&A at the end. I'm just going to remove my little video as it's heavily distracting, and we're going to jump straight into it. Awesome. All right. So as Lee said, and Gordon, my name is Jake. I've been with Quark now for a little while, and I've been in the expedition industry for some time. One of the things we'd like to talk about from a perspective of ours is what is our favorite expedition memory. So one of those that comes to mind, and I just jotted it down here before the webinar started, is coming face to face with one of my favorite animals, a leopard seal. And I actually have a pretty awesome video of this experience. This was in Antarctica last year. I was very lucky to take my parents down, and they've never seen anything like this growing up in central western New South Wales. This is a big 1,000-pound leopard seal that just popped up out of nowhere, was very curious, like a cat, I guess you could say, and came up and started biting the Zodiac. Don't worry though, these Zodiacs are rated for this type of experience, as they all they're also they're in compartments. So even if one section was to be bit, it can still float on 3 different compartments of the Zodiac. So these things will never sink no matter what. But if you are familiar with Quark Expeditions, there are a few things that are new that I'm going to talk about today. We have the new Arctic voyages that we are exploring Western and Northern Greenland. And for those that have actually traveled with us before and are looking getting back to Antarctica or the subantarctic region, and they're looking for something completely different, and maybe they haven't done South Georgia and the Falklands, we have just released, and this is pretty exciting, a 20-day voyage that's focusing just on South Georgia and the Falkland Islands. I'll talk more about this later. We also have a new voyage to the Weddell Sea. We are expanding our tundra to table, which I'll talk about later as well, now into Iceland, and the addition of our science and discovery program, which we are slowly rolling out on our new voyage, Voyager, which is our new ship, as well as on our Ultramarine. But first off, why travel with Quark Expeditions? Well, polar is all we do. We have the best expedition team in the industry, and we get you off the ship more and in more ways. That is literally our USPs in a nutshell. So our unique sales propositions. This basically is summing up what it is we do and how it is we do it so well. People love our product, and the reason we sell out most of our, in particular, Antarctic voyages is because of these 4 USPs. Now, polar is all we do. That is a huge one. We are only focusing on the polar regions, and that is all we have been doing for almost, 35 years now, 1991. We were using, back in the day, these really old Russian nuclear-powered icebreakers. We don't use these anymore, as we have sort of gone in a different direction of a company to using fancier ships, but we are a true exploration expedition company. So here's our bit of a timeline of achievements since 91. So we're the first to take groups of travelers, I guess you could say, to the North Pole, which is pretty exciting. We're also the first to complete a circumnavigation of Antarctica with commercial passengers. We're also the first to find the Emperor Penguin colony, or rockery, if you want to call it that, in Snow Hill, which is over in the Weddell Sea. And I'm going to talk more about Snow Hill later, as we still do expeditions to there. We also built the Ultramarine, which I'm going to talk about. The Tundra at a Table, which is an incredible experience. It's been recognized by National Geographic and many different organizations out there as being a very unique, one-of-a-kind experience. And the Ocean Explorer, which has just come to our fleet as well in 2024. The whole idea with Quark is to take where people barely ever get the opportunity to go. So we are taking you right literally to the ends of the earth. So penguins and polar bears, that is what we do. As I said, polar is all we are focused on, and that is what we do in a nutshell. So penguins and polar bears, if you ever have an interest in seeing either of these two animals, we are the operator of choice. But before we dive into the experiences, let's talk about our fleet. We have the 3 vessels that we currently operate. So we have the Ultramarine, we have the Ocean Explorer, and we have the World Voyager. There's something very important about these 3 vessels that you should all know, and this is not just about Quark, this is about expeditions in general, is you really need to understand the categories that we have here. So any ship that is 501 passengers or more cannot physically stop in Antarctica. That is what they call a sail-by. So you will see larger organizations like larger cruise lines, mass market, offering trips to Antarctica. That is not an expedition. You will simply be staying on board the ship. Category 2, there are a lot of competitors out there that have larger vessels in expeditions. They will make landings, they will get off the ship, but you are heavily restricted on how many times and for how long. Now, Category 1, every single vessel we have at Quark is a Category 1, so 200 passengers or less. That means we will make landings, we will get you off the ship a lot more, and we will have a lot more time off the vessel. So you will have the opportunity to step foot on Antarctica multiple times in one day. Now, the big thing to keep note here is in Antarctica, there are lots of rules and regulations, and one of which is you can only have 100 people on land at any one time. So the bigger ship you have, what are you doing with those other 300-400 people? Well, they tend to be on board the ship. That's why a lot of our competitors have a lot more onboard amenities to keep people busy. We don't need to do that because every single person on our ship is getting off at the same time. So you'll have 100 on land, and the other people, like for example, 68, 38, and 99, which covers the difference from 100 to the rest of the capacity of the vessel, they are off the ship doing other things, whether that's Zodiac cruising, up in the helicopters, and a whole range of different things I'm going to talk about later. So very important for everyone on the call to note this down. Now, our World Voyager, this is a brand new ship that we've taken, that we still haven't actually taken ownership of. It is bookable, but we are taking this for our next coming Antarctic season. She's 168 guests and is a 1B ice-rated vessel, or suite, or balcony, beautiful ship. We have the Ocean Explorer, which is a 1A or a PC6 ice-rated vessel with only 138 guests on board, and is operational both in the Arctic and the Antarctic, unlike the World Voyager, where we only use her in the Antarctic. Now, with this vessel in particular, if you look at the front, you'll notice it is very different to the shape of other particular vessels. Now, what that is called an X-bow design. The X-bow design allows us to have this really awesome bow lounge and atrium at the front of the ship, which does make some pretty cool videos and photos, especially when you cross the Drake Passage. But my personal favorite, and I know just like children, you're not supposed to have a favorite, but I certainly do, is the Ultramarine. Now, the reason for that is not only is she awesome, but she has 2 H-145 Airbus helicopters on board and is only 199 passengers, as well as we designed and built her ourselves. So we took everything that we've been doing since 1991 with expeditions, and we put this into a ship. So things like having the dual helicopters, the 4 Zodiac embarkation points, which allows us to get every single person off the ship really quickly. We also have it as a 1A or a PC6 ice rated. And something that is not very common on small little expedition vessels is a wraparound deck. We have even the ready rooms. Now, this allows you to be able to get ready within ease and is logistically easier to get off the boat when we have 199 people potentially trying to get off at the same time. So we do stagger it in 5 to 10 minute intervals. So we'll have one group come down, and you'll notice that that group is not the person next to you. So we are staggering this so you do have plenty of room. This is where your jackets are kept, where your boots are kept, and is at a very high temperature, because you will be getting off the ship, as I said before, multiple times in a day. So you want your gear to be dry. Our cabins, they're lovely, they're big, they're spacious, everything you'd expect from a floating 5-star luxury hotel. If you're this way inclined and you have the dollars, you can fork out a little bit more money and stay in like penthouse suites and owner suites. So, we have everything you can think of, from our veranda cabins all the way up to our penthouse and ultra suites. We also have the sauna, which is floor to ceiling windows. So again, with us designing this vessel, we made sure that it doesn't matter where you are on board the ship, you can see out the window and be on the lookout for whales or birds or even icebergs, which are pretty spectacular to see if you haven't seen them before. And of course, we have the bar and lounge area. What's really cool about having this is that we will have our guides here of a nighttime after dinner where you can come down, have a drink with them, but more importantly, we will be hosting bar talks. So they will go into stories that have happened on expeditions or things that have happened in their life doing scientific research that you can be part of and follow that story up with the drink, which is pretty interesting. Going back to what I said before with the wraparound deck, this might not seem like a big thing, but when you have about 100 whales around you in Paradise Harbour down in Antarctica, circling the vessel, it is really cool to be able to just walk around next to them and actually sit there and film them as they swim around the ship. That wraparound deck has been a godsend when it comes to some of the photos I've taken and of which I will show you in this presentation later. Talking about one of my own photos, this is when I took a photo just on my basic iPhone last year going up in Antarctica using the Airbus H145. So these, as I said, are Airbus helicopters. They are, excuse me, the most fuel efficient, sustainable helicopter in the industry, as well as we've designed the rotor wingtips with Airbus to not break the sound barrier. So you will not get that thumping sound as you typically hear from a helicopter. They are 8 seats, but we take 7 again, so every single person gets a window seat. This is an incredible experience and is included when we use the helicopters. As in some destinations, such as Svalbard, we do not use helicopters, but everywhere else it is an included flight seat included in your price on the Ultramarine. Now, adventure options. Now, with those helicopters, it does allow us to be able to say, on hand on my heart, we have the most ways to explore the Arctic and the Antarctic. We are unmatched when it comes to our off-ship experiences. This is, again, why people love our product. You will be off the ship as much as humanly possible. The demographic of the people that love to travel with Quark are those that know they're going to Antarctica or the Arctic for probably their once-in-a-lifetime experience, and they want the option, that's the key word, option, to know that they can see and do everything if they want to. They don't have to, but we have the options there. Things like professional photography, learning how to use your camera with someone that knows what they're doing. Hiking up through the mountains of, say, Greenland. Camping in Antarctica. Kayaking, stand-up paddleboarding, paddling. What else? 100 a table, downhill mountain biking. The helicopters in the bottom left there. The heli landings, heli hiking. But in the top right there, Zodiacs. You will be very familiar with the Zodiac by the time you finish with Quark Expeditions. Now, that's me there on the right. The reason I've thrown this photo, I'm not a small lad whatsoever, 200 pounds of solid muscle, but I do also carry the biggest camera in the world. And I might want to show you here that how much room we give our guests in these Zodiacs. We do not load them at their capacity, which is 13. In this photo, you can see what 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and the photographer. So like there is 8 people in this particular Zodiac when it's rated for 13, so you have plenty of room. And the other thing to note, the person driving is an expedition guide. She's either an ornithologist, a glaciologist, a historian, or all of the ologists under the sun. They work on board Quark Expeditions. It is never driven by someone that is not qualified or knows what they're talking about in the areas we're in. Things like the polar plunge. Now, this is a great way to wake up in the morning, better than your morning coffee. You can do it at 66 degrees south. That's me again. And I've also been lucky enough to do it at the same pose at 81 degrees north. So this is something that our guests absolutely love. The day that we do this, and you can see here in the photo, I'm actually being kicked off the ship by the expedition leader. The people that do this, they absolutely love it. They make it a big song and dance. They're playing loud music. They got vodka shots for when you get back on board to warm up. The sauna room and the steam room is available. It is just such a fun experience. And they usually do it at the end of the expedition as a bit of a send-off to say, congratulations. You know, not only did you make it to the Arctic or the Antarctic, but you also got to jump in, 2 degrees of water. We also have the Greenland camp experience. Pretty self-explanatory. We're taking you by helicopter up into the alpine regions of Greenland with a local Greenlandic host. Fishing for dinner, picking root vegetables for dinner, that type of thing. It's an incredible experience and is pre-bookable too and limited to only 15. The ice sheet experience, again, this is in Greenland. The second largest ice sheet in the world happens to be in Greenland, which we land on with a glaciologist. You got your crampons on your shoes, you got your hiking poles, and you're out walking for a good hour or so along the second largest glacier in the world, which is pretty cool. Heli landings, again, it's pretty self-explanatory what we're doing here. We're landing, again, up in the mountains, but the whole idea of these helicopters isn't to see wildlife. It's to get our guests up into the regions of Antarctica and the Arctic and see it from a completely different perspective. Most expedition operators out there, pretty much 99.9% of them, you're only going to see the regions from the coast. But having the helicopters allows you to be able to go up into the mountains. Even things like heli hiking. Not only will you land up in the mountains, you go for a bit of a hike with an alpine guide along huge ridge lines, across glaciers, crevasses. So in some instances, we'll tie you together, which does create that little bit of sense of adventure. Now, talking about our expedition guides, these are the best in the industry. This guy in the photo here, his name's Jake Morrison, a bit of a legend, he's got the same name as me, but yeah, fellow Canadian, absolutely loves what he does, and these are the people that make your expedition what it is. So they are glaciologists, historians. As I said, they're all the ologists under the sun, but to work for Quark, they must pass a polar academy. So we send them down to Ushuaia, which is at the bottom of the world, and if they do not pass that, they do not work for Quark Expeditions. We're the only organization that does that because we have a very high standard when it comes to our guides. We also have our science and discovery program. This is a pretty new concept that's being rolled out. So we were originally doing it on the Ocean Voyager. We now have expanded that to the Ultramarine. This is in collaboration with Seabird Watch, Penguin Watch, Mouse Free Mariam, and the Finlandia Lab. So basically, the whole idea of this is to bring our guests into the fold of scientific research. So not only will you be with expedition guides and scientists on board that are doing real world research, but you'll be amongst all of that and participating in it as well. One such program we have is Happy Whale, where you'll actually take photos of whales' tails and upload them to a database, which will identify that whale. Just like your fingerprint, you can identify a whale by its tail and its shape and its scars. But the cool thing is that if the whale isn't in that database, you get to name that whale for future reference, which is pretty awesome. So lots of different interactive citizen science programs there. And on top of that, we're also bringing in portable hydrophone units, which are now being deployed on all of our Zodiacs, so you can hear the sounds of whales underneath the Zodiac. I would hate to think how many times I've been in the situation where there's been so many whales around us, but under the water, where I've literally put my phone or my camera in the ocean to show you, and I actually have some footage of that I'll show you later, but to be able to hear them would be just phenomenal. So now we actually can do that. Now, moving on to the Arctic. So up in the Arctic, we do Canada, we do Greenland, we do Iceland, and we do Svalbard. Now, this is just a few photos I've thrown in here to give you a bit of an understanding of what the Arctic looks like. It can change quite quickly. It can go from complete white, as you see in this photo, to complete barren just within a couple of days when the temperature rises. So depending on what sort of experience you want, book earlier or book later in the season. Now, this photo here, a lot of people ask me why our guides carry rifles. This is not a hunting safari. This is a safety precaution that we must have, that all expedition operators must have up in the Arctic where there are polar bears present. So that is why we have rifles. We have never shot one. We never will. It is a last resort, but is there if we need it. It's more so also for a noisemaker. It makes a bloody big sound that will scare a bear away completely. But this is the reason most people want to travel to the Arctic. They want to see these guys. These polar bears up close are absolutely fantastic. As not only that, the landscape. Like this is a place called Afalet, which is up in, I probably didn't pronounce that correct, Gordon. I'm sure some of your staff at Cruise Norway can pronounce it correctly in Norwegian, but this is an area where all the birds land up in Svalbard. Now, in Iceland, this is one of our newer destinations. Most of our trips actually for the Arctic start in and out of Reykjavik, which is fantastic. If you're not sure where Iceland is, it's just below Greenland there, across the Denmark Strait, and is in between basically Greenland and mainland Europe. It is the home of fire and ice. That is why people love it. It is one of those places that has so many volcanoes and active volcanoes on display that it is an incredible thing to just witness. Lots of wildlife because of the volcanic soil, call it home, and my favorite bird, the puffin. But again, just some of the pictures you will get in Greenland just do not do it justice. It is an incredible place, and I'm actually visiting there this year, which I can't wait for the first time. But the Tundra to Table, which we've been offering for a while now, that I mentioned earlier, we have now expanded that into Iceland as well. It's literally bringing on Icelandic chefs that are from the region on board our vessel, which are presenting their culture and their history through food. Again, pre-bookable and limited to only 15 people. The trip that I would talk about, we have many that include Iceland, but this one here just focuses on Iceland itself. It's 12 days and is a circumnavigation. I'm sure many people have probably stopped in Reykjavik, gone to the Blue Hole, maybe gone to the waterfalls that I can't pronounce, but there is so much more to see in Iceland than just those regions. Now, my personal favorite is Svalbard. This is somewhere that not too many people. Sorry, we're just going to take a quick drink. This is a place where not too many people know or have ever heard of it. It is part of Norway. It's a Norwegian archipelago and about 800 miles south of the North Pole. So very, very far north. Now, lots of operators are doing Svalbard, but this is a screenshot I took when I was up there last year showing where we were compared to all of the other vessels in and around Svalbard. You notice anything? Not one other ship is within at least a day's sail of us. On the left-hand side there, completely alone. Out in the bottom part of Svalbard looking for polar bears. On the right, that is an island called Kotoya, which is 55 kilometers from Siberia, Russia. So we're completely alone. And that day that we got to Kotoya, we saw 8 polar bears in the space of 10 minutes. And not only that, we go very, very far north. If anyone knows anything about degrees and minutes, 81.4 degrees is very, very far north. That was the furthest the ultramarine had ever gone, and we managed to smash that record the week after by taking her up to 82.5 degrees, because later in the season, the ice melts. And as I said, this is exactly what I was showing you before. Later in the season, the ice melts. So if you do want, maybe you're from somewhere that's, hot and humid and you maybe want that winter experience, well, then go early to mid-June. But if you want the summer experience with not much snow, no ice, most of it's receded, mid-June to August is the time to go. And it does affect where we can go as well with the ice. So the earlier in the season, we can't really get much further north because the ice at the top of the planet has come all the way down, including Svalbard. And later in the season, that ice retreats. So if you look at a globe or if you look at a map, you'll see there's always ice around the top and the bottom part of the world. That ice, it recedes and it melts. So that's what you're seeing here with those dots that look like chicken pox. So if you want to explore more of Svalbard, then you go later in the season. But going back to that photo I showed you before, Alphacolet, which I definitely can't pronounce and said it completely different to the first time I said it, is home to over 100,000 breeding pairs of thick-billed mews, also known as guillemots. There's so many of them on this spot. They actually say there's a higher population density, than Manhattan. So give you an understanding of how many birds are just in this one area. Now, what these birds do is they land here for a certain time of the year to lay their eggs. Now, what's really cool is because they're on this massive sheer cliff face, their eggs have adapted over many, many years of evolution to be more of a pear shape instead of a round shape like a chicken egg. And what that means is if it was to roll, it would roll in a circle and not fall off the cliff. These are the types of things you learn when you travel with Quark Expeditions. Very, very interesting. And some of you may have seen the documentary of those tiny little black birds jumping off massive cliffs. Sir David Attenborough actually did a documentary on this. This is where you see that. These birds, as they hatch, will jump off. They're called jumplings and land hundreds of meters below in the water. Many of them actually, unfortunately, do die. But to give you an understanding of how many of these birds here, you can see in this photo, there is just thousands. The sky looks like mosquitoes. There are birds just everywhere. You can't really tell, but in this, I'm actually ducking in some instances because birds are getting so close to us. So not only is the cliffs full, but also the sky as they go out fishing. Now, with all of these birds in one spot, you will get a lot of predators. So this is an Arctic fox, and I happen to be there at the time of the year where it's going from the winter, to the summer, and an Arctic fox actually does change color. So you can see here in this shot, he is actually changing color as we speak. I won't show you the aftermath. I'm pretty sure you can get the understanding of what happened, but he did get what I like to call fast food. And this is the expedition that I did. It was 15 days in duration. It was a circumnavigation. And as I said, we went all the way up to Kotoya and up into the pack ice. So up in the pack ice, which is not in that photo, this is the photo here. You can see we went all the way up. And can you spot the polar bear at the top of this shot? Now that's me there with my hat on and my big ass camera. But at the very top there is the polar bear that came up to the boat that we got to see while we were in the pack ice. And the shot that I got from that day just was absolutely incredible. So to give you an understanding, if you are a photographer or if you are wanting to take photos of not just polar bears, but also birds, here's a fantastic shot of a puffin. Now, what's really cool about puffins is they actually had inward-facing teeth, almost like they're not teeth, but they're like teeth in their beak, and that allows them to catch multiple fish at one time. So you will see stunning photos of puffins with like 4 or 5 different fish in their bill. But what's also, I don't know if you can tell me, but what the color of a polar bear is, it's not white, it's actually black. And it's black because they live up in the Arctic, and their black skin does actually attract heat. But the white pigments that you're seeing is actually refraction of light, because the fur of a polar bear is almost like a needle. It's hollow. So it's refracting light, giving a white appearance. So again, just little things you're going to learn along the way traveling with Quark Expeditions. As I said, lots of birds, lots of gulls, that type of thing, and walruses. For those that don't know, a group of walrus is called a huddle. For me, that was enough. I was obsessed. From the moment I learned that a group of walruses is called a huddle, I was obsessed with these animals. And this guy, Steve, that we managed to get some great shots with at about 11:30 at night due to 24 hours of daylight. But what's really cool about these big, massive walruses, one, they're huge, but two, they can actually float really well, because within their chest cavity, they have a big air sac that carries 13 gallons of air. So they can inflate themselves and actually sit high and be buoyant. And those whiskers that you see, they actually use like fingerprints to be able to, find clams and mussels in the dark under the ocean, which is pretty awesome. So lots of cool little facts coming your way. And here's Svalbard again, just to give you an understanding. I did show this earlier, but I want to really, really reiterate that if you are wanting to see lots more of Svalbard, go later in the season, as we aren't as restricted with the ice. We also have a trip here that starts in Helsinki, flies up to Longyearbyen in Svalbard, and then down through Greenland, finishing in Reykjavik. So you can also see, not just Svalbard, but Greenland and Reykjavik and Helsinki. So you can tick, if you're a country counter, this is a great trip for you. Now, moving on to Greenland. Greenland is home to massive fjords, big, huge glaciers. These are a couple of travel agents I was very lucky to send not too long ago, a few years back now, but they are just taking it in. Like, some of the best places and best fjord systems in the world isn't necessarily in Norway. Sorry, Gordon, I know that Cruise Norway is the name of the company, but you can see some of the best fjord systems in Greenland, especially in East Greenland. So there is a place that's called the Massive Tree of Water Cutting, which is a place where this huge, big, massive glacier called the Sorsby Sound is, and you can get some incredible photos. We also have Ilsøet Ice Fjord, which is known as the Iceberg Factory. It is a UNESCO World Heritage Site, and for a very good reason. It's fed by one of the fastest moving glaciers in the world. Actually, the glacier itself, it moves 40 meters per day, which is insane. There's also a place called the Iceberg Bank in this area. So at the mouth of the fjord, there's a shallow underwater ridge. So huge, big, massive glaciers that is cutting off, turning into icebergs, will eventually float down and hit the underwater ridge. Now, the icebergs, they get stuck here, and people come from around the world to get photos of these just sitting off the coast of this little tiny little town. And another little fun fact with you for this one, this is where the, the iceberg that sunk the Titanic originated from, if you're a bit of a history buff into the Titanic. But the fjord systems, again, as I mentioned, these are just absolutely insane. That's my colleague Taylor on the right. And one of the biggest questions he gets when he shows this and presents is, how long did it take to hike up there? It actually took about 3 minutes by helicopter. Again, reiterating the fact that having these choppers allows us to be able to take our guests, no matter what age or what mobility, up into some of the most amazing regions in the world. Here's some trips here of West Greenland. So in and out of Reykjavik, flying up to Nuuk, sailing all the way to the top up to Cap Alexandria, and finishing in Kangerlussuaq. 16 days, so this is a very extensive trip. We also have West Greenland more trips here, just different variations. So in and out of Reykjavik, these are all going to be in and out of Reykjavik for the most part, and will mostly usually always start in Kangerlussuaq and finishing in Nuuk, as that's where the airports tend to be. We also have South Greenland, Greenland to Newfoundland, and a Northeast Greenland trip. Now, the Greenland to Newfoundland trip is quite interesting. So Reykjavik to Kangerlussuaq, up to Ilulissat, which is where I was just showing you before with the massive icebergs, sailing across over to Baffin Islands. So now you're up in the Northwest Passage, down through the Torngat National Park, which is where you can see polar bears and black bears, and I'll show you a photo of that later, and finishing down into St. John's. Really cool itinerary, if you ask me. And talking about Canada, the Canadian Arctic. So we don't do the entirety of the Northwest Passage. It's just too long. We don't really want to do that. So the whole idea of the Northwest Passage is to focus on the landscape. This is the Torngats that I was mentioning before. If you looked at a photo like this quickly, you'd probably think that might be Hawaii or somewhere like that. Nope, This is Arctic Canada and is the only place in the world where polar bears and black bears can be seen in the one spot. It's really cool. But because the polar bears and bears that live up there have that no trees that they used to, so the polar bears and the bears that so black bears in particular, you tend to see, they climb trees and all the rest of it. But because there's no trees up there, the bear has sort of adapted over time with evolution to be known as the tundra black bear. So they do have a few different traits and different tendencies for when it comes to hunting, especially the caribou, that they don't necessarily get to do when they don't have trees. So it's a very, very different style of hunting and a different bear altogether, but still a black bear. But the biggest reason most people want to see the Arctic Canada is the people. Like getting to learn their way of life and going to some of the most remote Arctic towns in the world is something that, it has to be seen to believe. Like we will take people on tours and stuff around these little towns. We will, have certain areas that we want to show you, but we also encourage our guests, just go for a wander. And you will find that locals will come out to talk to you. Some will even come out and bring coffee and tea and ask you to come in and have a chat. These are the most friendliest people in the world that might only get to see tourists probably 3 or 4 times a year. And that does tend to be just us with some of these places we go. So again, this is an experience that you will come home and tell your kids, your grandkids, your friends, your family, and you will be the most interesting person at the dinner table for at least the foreseeable future. One of the trips that I would probably be looking at doing starts in Reykjavik, up to Nuuk, across the Davis Strait, up past Baffin Island, Beechy Island, and finishing in Resolute for a charter flight back to Calgary. If you really want to see the Arctic and you definitely want to see both Greenland and Canada, this is the trip for you. Not only will you also get to start in Iceland. Really, really cool. Another trip here, Greenland to Newfoundland, as I mentioned before. I've thrown that back on here because I really want to reiterate how cool this trip is. This is the trip that I would personally do if I wanted to do it, or if I had to book something. This is the trip that I would probably be looking at doing if I was looking at the Arctic, just because it covers so much. Now let's go to Antarctica. Now Antarctica is entirely different to the Arctic, even though some of the photos might look similar, but the species of wildlife that you're going to find are entirely different. So we do the Antarctic Peninsula, we do the Falklands, we do South Georgia, we do Patagonia, and we do Snow Hill, which I was talking about earlier. Now, I want you to take particular mention of this map. No, words aren't really my thing today, but look at this map. So Ushuaia is where most of our, all of our trips basically start when you get on the boat from land. Punta Arenas is where we do our skip the Drake itinerary, is where you can actually fly down to King George Island. And most of our trips will particularly start in Buenos Aires with a charter flight to Ushuaia. So you don't have to get yourself to Ushuaia, but there are some trips that do start in that town, and you can make your own way there. I want you to notice where the Falklands is and South Georgia. These are north of Patagonia. So if you see here, you're actually going to go up, then you're going to go across, then you're going to go all the way back down. So those trips do tend to be a little bit longer in duration because of that reason. And over here where it says Snow Hill, this is the Weddell Sea. Now, if you look at a map of Antarctica, I don't have one on here to show you, but basically it's like a big inlet, like a huge inlet. It's like a washing machine that's full of ice, and there's ice is going around and around and around. And that's why a lot of companies don't go there, because it's a little bit unsafe. But we have the right tools, the right team, and the right ship to be able to do the Weddell Sea and Snow Hill safely. Some of the things you're going to see on an Antarctica trip is the Lamar Channel. This is where, if you'd see, there is an expedition vessel in the top right of this photo. Look at the cliffs next to it. These mountains go from ocean level all the way up, like a few 100 meters, pretty quickly, and is an incredible experience to go through the Lamar Channel. It's almost like going through the Suez Canal or the Panama Canal, and you feel like you can touch both sides, especially when you get further into the canal, which isn't shown in this photo. Another photo of mine that I took here down in Port Lockroy. This is where we actually have the most southern gift shop in the world, believe it or not, but this is part of a British Antarctic survey where they have been studying the rockery of penguins that you can see in this photo for decades. You will get to meet the team here. You will get to go on board, as well as you will also get to post a letter if you choose that will arrive home in about a year later. But it is really cool to be home and then like 7-8 months down the track, have a postcard just arrive in the mail from yourself from Antarctica. It's a pretty cool experience. I highly recommend doing it and sending them to some friends and family. Deception Island, a big, massive whale station here. It is an active volcano, so it's a little bit warmer. That's why you see a lot of the ice here has melted, because it is an active volcano. And is a real good place to see seals and sea lions. This is the sort of place that they hang out and go fishing. So a really cool, again, piece of history that our historian will tell you all about. Paradise Harbour, one of my favorite places in all of Antarctica. Again, massive, just sheer cliff faces, beautiful place. And for some reason, no one quite knows why, but it does tend to have the most sunnier days you will find in Antarctica. So a really, really interesting place to go and to go exploring. But let's face it, most people want to go to Antarctica to see penguins. There are 18 different species of penguin in the world, all found in the southern hemisphere, but within the Antarctic and subantarctic region, you will find 8. So you got the emperors, the kings. The kings tend to be in South Georgia. I'll show you a photo of that later. Gentoo, Melgenic, and Macaroni, Adelie, Chinstrap, and Rockhopper. But the most prominent is the Gentoo, the Adelie, and the Chinstrap. They're the ones you most likely will see on the continent of Antarctica itself. And then on certain little islands, in particular South Georgia, the Falklands, you will find, as I mentioned, the kings, the Melgenic, the Rockhopper, and the Macaroni. So depending if you're a bit of a penguin fanatic like myself and you want to see all of them, well, we do have a trip that will see most of them, and I'll talk about that in a minute. Just a whole bunch of my little photos here that I've thrown in last minute just to give you a bit of an understanding. You don't have to be a professional photographer by any means to go to Antarctica to get great shots. We will have a lot of time on board crossing the Drake on the way down to get to know you, get to know your camera, and more importantly, get to know your interests. So the onboard photographer helped me a lot in my first trip down there back in 2015. And since then, I've been many times, and every single time I go, I learn more and more and more about my camera. That is huge for me and for a lot of travelers. Some of the shots you can get of like sea lions, the crab-eater seal, just finishing lunch, and birds. The older I've gotten, the more bird nerd I've become. You will get some incredible photos of lots of different types of birds down in Antarctica, including penguins. If you're lucky enough to get one just jumping out of the water, fantastic, but it does take a lot of time just waiting and a lot of photos. But how close do we get to whales? It's not just about the penguins, but I've muted this because all you can hear is my mother screaming. This is a massive humpback that just popped right up in front of us, and there goes the fluke right in the middle of the frame, straight down into the water while they dive to go fishing. That's an experience, again, something that I'm so glad I got on camera that I will never forget. And just after that, we're sitting in the Zodiac and we see the shadows of whales underneath us. So I've thrown my GoPro in the water, and here is mum and dad. These guys are the size of a school bus, mind you. Big, massive humpbacks just swimming on by. But what happened after this was something, again, that I'm so glad I got it on camera. This is the baby that didn't really like us being above it, so he released his air sac. We were completely safe. We got out of its way. We didn't harm the animal whatsoever. But to have a baby humpback go underneath the Zodiac and release its air and all of that air come up and create bubbles on top of the surface, again, something that you just never forget that experience. Now, Antarctica, how do we get there? So as I mentioned, we have some trips that do start and finish in Ushuaia. So you can make your own way there. And this is the Antarctic Explorer, discovering the 7th continent. So crossing the Drake, down through the Shetlands, and then the peninsula and back again. We also have the Antarctic Peninsula, which is starting in Buenos Aires and going over into the Weddell Sea. So this is where you're going to see an entirely different part of Antarctica. 0.1% of the population have been to Antarctica, but 0.01% have been to the Weddell Sea. So if you are that way inclined and you want to go to Antarctica where not many people get to go, this is a trip for you. Now, with these helicopters, we do have some incredible experiences. We even have Antarctica by helicopter. So Buenos Aires to Ushuaia, crossing the Drake Passage, Jonaville Island, and bumping around all of those islands there in the Weddell Sea, but using the helicopters. We also have Antarctica by helicopter crossing the Circle. So again, down to the peninsula, crossing the Antarctic Circle, but it has more helicopter-centric and helicopter inclusions on that particular voyage. One of the biggest questions we do get, should I fly or should I sail the Drake? It's a completely up to you, and it is personal preference. It is also something you need to take into account if you are prone to seasickness. My personal preference is to do the Drake, or at least do it once, and I'll talk more about that in a second. But you can skip it entirely. So from Punta Arenas in Chile, you can fly down to King George and pick up the vessel there. You can also fly, pick up the vessel, and cross the Antarctic Circle. The great thing is that you will skip the Drake, so you've gained 4 days of not just sailing, which is incredible. The planes we use are fantastic. There's a purpose-built high-wing aircraft to land in King George on a gravel runway, as you can see here. But as I said, I'd recommend doing it once. So you can sail, fly. So you can fly down, get the ship, and then cruise back to Ushuaia, or vice versa. So if you're not sure, or if you are interested in doing both, this is definitely the trip for you, or trips, as we have multiple. Jumping to South Georgia real quick. This is where you're going to see the king penguins, lots of gulls, seals, that type of thing. But this is the photo that everyone wants to get. This is Alexander Bay. There's over Andrews Bay, sorry, St. Andrews Bay. There's over 400,000 king penguins in a single spot. It is absolutely amazing. If you don't believe me, feel free to count them, but trust me, they're all there. And from a high up vantage point, you can start to see they even have almost like roads. So like the water in the middle is like where they go to drink. So they'll have like a road from one point, like for example, they're feeding up in the ocean to their water point, and then they'll have another up until a different spot where they might chill out and relax and get sun. They have these highways, 400,000 penguins in one spot. But you'll also see lots of elephant seals. About 50% of the world's population actually breed on South Georgia, which is pretty awesome. The males are absolutely enormous, weighing up to 4,000 kilos. You'll see Antarctic fur seals as well. These guys were almost hunted to extinction like many, many years ago, but over 95% of the global population now breed on South Georgia. And it's also the finding resting place of Ernest Shackleton. So if you know anything about history, or if you have read The Endurance, Ernest Shackleton's grave is in South Georgia. We also have the Falklands. Now, the Falklands, or Malvinas, which is what they Argentinians call it. You know, there was a bit of a battle. It was part of Argentina, and then the Brits took it over. Huge battle. The Brits won, so it's still part of Britain, but it's almost like a British countryside sort of feel in the sub-Antarctic. 3,500 humans call it home, but there's over 1 million penguins. And following the battle, what's quite interesting is the humans actually accidentally created a safe habitat for penguins. So there were lots of landmines that were planted during the Falklands War, and obviously humans didn't want to go into the areas where the landmines were. But the penguins are so light, they don't set off the landmines. So they've created this protected area where there's landmines and penguins in one spot, which is pretty interesting. So it's a bit of an accidental nature reserve, I guess you could say. But down there, you're going to see kings, gentoos, rockhopper, the malagenic, and the macaronian penguins. So you can tick off lots of different species. Of the 18 species of penguins that are in the world, you can tick off the 5 in one day. The malagenic penguin, it's also called the jackass penguin. It's not an insult to the penguin whatsoever, but they live in these underground burrows, and they make this loud braying sound that sounds exactly like a donkey. That's why they call it jackass penguin, which is pretty funny to hear for the first time. You won't find any McDonald's or Starbucks or anything like that in the Falklands. It's very small, low-key type area, but very colorful, you know, English pubs. And it's a home to the smoko. So I don't know if you know what smoko is. It's a term in Australia and in Britain where people go on smoko. It's like going on break, but not your lunch break. Like you go for a quick smoke. So it's a big thing here. So you'll be out walking around, and you'll find that everyone will just walk outside of their office building or whatever it might be, out of the restaurant, and they'll have smoko, which is pretty cool. You can have smoko with a local in the Falklands. One of the few trips here to show you. So we have lots of different trips that include the Falklands and South Georgia. The epic Antarctica is probably the one that, if you want to tick all of the boxes, that's the one for you. Buenos Aires, Ushuaia, Falklands, South Georgia, the peninsula of Antarctica, crossing the circle of Antarctica, and then back to Ushuaia for your charter flight to Buenos Aires. Penguins far south, again, just doing the continent of Antarctica, not crossing the circle. And then we have one that does just South Georgia, excluding the Falklands. So lots of different variations, but this is the one we're very excited about that just got released. It's 20 days. And it does the Falklands and South Georgia only. So this is an incredible experience for those that have done Antarctica or that have a very strong interest in that region. But again, the epic. This is the one that I would 100% want to do, knowing I'm probably going to go to Antarctica only once in my life, and I want to tick it all. Rather than probably spend 3 times as much money and trying to get back to see this destination on multiple occasions, you can do it in one hit and see everything in 23 days. What's the saying? I don't know what the saying is. But anyway, last but not least, that's it. Snow Hill Island. So Snow Hill, this is an incredible different way that we do this. So we get the ultramarine as close as we possibly can. So we literally park the vessel in the ice, When the ice gets too thick, we stop, we load everyone up into helicopters, and we cross landing on Snow Hill Island. So we build like a bit of a makeshift runway here. And then you hike 1.5 to 2 kilometers to see the emperor penguins. These guys are incredible. These are the largest penguin in the world. And if you see here the babies, they're very, very, very fluffy. And what happens is they lay the eggs, and the penguins have a brood pouch. So think of like an upside down kangaroo. They sit the egg within their brood pouch on top of their feet to get the egg up off the ice. The egg will hatch, and out comes this big fluff ball of a penguin. Now, the penguin itself, as they're a baby, they'll go through what they call a catastrophic molt. So they'll lose all of their feathers just before they go out for the winter to live in the ocean. And that's when they get their beautiful plumage that you can see here with the adults. They're very photogenic, but they are massive. They're about 4 to 4.5 feet tall, and they have a very long beak. So we do give them plenty of room. Oh, not last, Patagonia, completely forgot. This is a new option that we've been starting to do in the last few years. Incredible destination. I've done Patagonia extensively, but I've never done it by expedition ship, and I really want to because it did a lot of places that are inaccessible. So we start in Buenos Aires, we fly you down to Ushuaia, we go out through the Beagle Channel, all the way through up to Punta Arenas, up to the Torres del Paine National Park, and then back to Punta Arenas for a flight to Santiago, Chile. You cover everything, and it is an amazing place. But that's it from me today, guys. I hope that's covers everything that we do. If you do have any more questions, feel free to hit me up now. But there are a lovely team at Cruise Norway, so you can contact them here with the phone number or visit their website if you want more information. But yeah, that's it from me. Gordon?
Wow, Jake, some amazing footage, and I love some of the video clips that you did as well. I mean, it's great to see that you have these first-hand experiences and can speak from experience. Mind-blowing. Yeah, time for questions and answers. If anybody has anything that you have yet to cover, I think you did a pretty comprehensive job. It literally took us all over the Arctic and Antarctica. But if there's any questions, Lee, can you check?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I know you touched on this, but this is always such a popular question about fitness level and really, how fit do you need to be when you're on an expedition?
Yeah, great question. And it's funny enough, Lee, the three of us were talking about that before we started our call today. So the great thing with Quark Expeditions is we have something for everyone. I'm not going to lie, we are more on the adventurous side. Like we do offer so many off-ship experiences that is our forte and that is what we're focused on. But to give you an understanding, we're going to Svalbard recently with my wife. It was an incredible experience. I love Svalbard. It's my new favorite place. But when we did a landing, every time we got somewhere, we had multiple groups for the hike or the walk. So we literally had a group called the Miranderers, which is literally people that just want to sit around the landing site, take it all in. We had the walking group, which wanted to actually go for a walk, but a very slow walk. We had the fast group, and then we had the chargers. Those are the people that were running up sheer cliff faces. Like I remember walking with my wife up to a certain vantage point, taking photos of these Arctic foxes, which was so cool. But I'm looking at this massive cliff, and I'm like, I think I see movement up there. And the guide was like, yeah, that's the charging group. They're literally running up these mountains. And so that is like not the group you want to take your camera on. But I'm a photographer. I want to take my camera and everything. So I never did the charging group. But what I'm getting at is we have something for everyone. As well as having those helicopters really does allow our guests, those that might not necessarily be as mobile as they probably once were, to see and experience. Remember that photo I showed of my colleague Taylor at that huge cliff in Greenland? A helicopter took him up there. So there is something for everyone, which, we do cover, but be cognizant that, we are a very off-ship orientated expedition operator.
Excellent. Yeah, thank you. What about what would you say about maybe families who want to travel together multiple generations? Is the ship suited for that?
Certainly is. We do have some interconnecting rooms, but let's face it, why would you want to be connected on an expedition? The ship's small enough. You're going to be living in each other's back pockets anyway. But yeah, we are 100% suitable for multi-generational expeditions. In particular, we do take care of families. We will reserve a table for them at dinner so they can dine together. But again, you're on a ship with like 138 people. You're going to have a very extended family for the duration of your voyage. You will get to know everyone by probably day 2 of crossing the Drake Passage. But yeah, 100% suitable for multi-generational. And we have everything that you'd expect to see, as well as putting them in the same Zodiac group, making sure that they're in the helicopter together. All of that stuff we take care of so we keep families together.
Terrific. Thank you. Well, those were the only questions that I had. Gordon, is there anything else that you wanted to point out?
Yeah, no, I just wanted to say thank you once again to Jake and Quark Expeditions for joining us. Cruise Norway is a specialist agency. All we sell is products like Quark. We very proudly represent them. It's one of the top operations, as we have learned and seen again in this wonderful webinar. And I highly recommend that anybody in the audience gets in touch with us. Visit cruisenorway.com. All the itineraries that were shared during the presentation are available on our website, and all you have to do is click, and either via WhatsApp or a toll-free number, you can get in touch with one of our expert ICs and hopefully make your Quark booking. Because we've sent many happy customers on these voyages, and if you want to do these destinations, you need to do them right, and Quark is definitely one of those that does it right and makes those dream trips come true.
I think you hit the nail on the head just there, Gordon, saying by doing it right. Like, there are a lot of people out there, and I've worked for the competitors, and I've worked for one particular operator that, right now is selling out their trips really cheap, like stupid cheap. The rest of us in the industry are like, how? And the thing is, though, that's not right for everyone. Like, there is a correct product out there for everyone in expeditions, and I'm a true believer of that. And like, there's something for those in wheelchairs. We do not take anyone in a walker or a wheelchair. We're just not equipped to do that. But there are operators out there that do that. But you really need to look at why you want to go to these destinations. What is it you want to see? Like, do you prefer to have a butler? Do you want to be dressed up in a ball gown and a suit and tie at dinner? That's not us. That's not us. But there is an operator out there that does that. There are like 3 of them that have butler service. I've never had a butler in my life. I wouldn't even know what to do with one. But what I'm getting at is, like, there is something for everyone. If you are the person that wants to travel proper and see an expedition and do an expedition the correct way and feel like you're on a sense of adventure and you are exploring the world, the world that's still yet to be explored, then that is what we do, and that is what we do very, very well.
Yeah, yes, I agree. So, but in closing, give us a call, contact our ICs. They're there to help you. A lot of them have been to the exact same places that Jake just described, and we're happy to work with you to make those dreams come true. It's truly something that I think everybody, all these places should be visited, but you need to
There's
visit
one
them
final
right.
question here from Dale about solo travelers. Great question there. Another question, another thing that we was talking about before we started today.
Right.
We do have solo availability. So rather than pay like 200% and be in a cabin on your own that's equipped for 2 people, we have solo cabins, which is incredible. We're one of the only operators that actually does that. And as well as you can share. So rather than pay a little bit extra, you can share with someone of the same gender. So what that means is if we get a female that's saying, I want to share, and then we get another female, well, obviously we'll put you together on that trip and you will pay a lot less. But if you happen to say you want to share and there is no one, or no one of the same gender that has done that as well, well, then you get that whole cabin to yourself. So I tell everyone, if you are going to go solo, the solo cabins are great if you want to guarantee to be on your own. But if you also want to pay a little bit less and potentially with a high chance of getting that room on your own, then book the shared option. So yes, we do definitely cater for those solo travelers, 100%.
Lots of flexibility with Quark.
1,000,000%. But if that's it, guys, thank you so much. Reach out to the guys at Cruise Norway. They really are one of the best out there when it comes to knowing, and they will definitely, as I said, put the right person on the right operator. Gordon and his team, they know everyone, not just Quark. They work with some of our biggest competitors and companies I've worked with in the past. So they know the products inside and out. And for me, that is the most important thing when it comes to expedition. Go on the right product. If that's with us, fantastic. If it's not, just get yourself to Antarctica and the Arctic. You won't be sorry.
Here. All right.
Awesome.
Thank you,
Thanks,
Lee.
guys.
Thank you, everybody. Have a great week.
Thanks, everyone. This will
Bye.
conclude our webinar. Goodbye now.
Bye, Lee.